Hello, the topic we are discussing today is physical development of adolescents. The objectives of this module are: after reading this chapter, you will be able to answer the following questions. What are the physical developments that occur during adolescence? What are the different concepts of adolescents' physical development? What are the different factors that influence adolescents' physical development? And how does physical development of girls vary from boys? The passage from childhood to adulthood is marked by a long period known as adolescence, a developmental transition that involves physical, cognitive, emotional, and social changes. What is adolescence then? The term adolescent has been derived from the Latin word adolescere, which means to grow up or to grow into maturity. Hall viewed adolescence as a period of storm and stress, a period of emotional conflict and contradictions. While the adolescent is coping with the demands of physical and mental growth, the socialization process is making conflicting demands. The disharmony between the developing adolescent and the society creates the inevitable storm and stress. The adolescent's physical growth can be determined in several ways. One index is morphological age, which gives normative data on height and weight. Another is the emergence of secondary sexual characteristics, which include the development of primary sex organ. Thirdly, other indications of physical development are skeletal growth and glandular changes. These physiological changes indicate that the individual is approaching puberty. The movement into puberty is characterized by the same growth sequence in all individuals, although the rate of growth may vary from individual to individual. So what are the pubertal events? The series of physical changes that the adolescent undergoes stretches across a continuum from pre-puberty to post-puberty, with puberty representing the midpoint. The events of puberty have been divided into three phases. The events are pre-puberty, pubescence, and puberty. In pre-puberty, the phase begins with the onset of secondary sex characteristics, which include the production of sex-specific hormones and the emergence of observable physical differences between males and females. In the second stage, that is pubescence, sex cells multiply and the emergence of secondary sexual characteristics nears completion. In the final stage of puberty, ovulation and discharge of mature spermatozoa begins to occur. Therefore, reproduction is possible. So what are the hormonal changes that take place during puberty? Puberty begins due to heightened production of sex-related hormones and takes place in two stages. First stage is adrenarche, the maturing of adrenal glands, followed by gonadarche, the maturing of sex organs. During the ages of 7 to 8, the adrenal glands located above the kidneys secrete gradually increasing levels of androgens. Androgens secreted by the adrenal glands principally is dehydroepiandrosterone or DHEA. The DHEA plays a major role in the growth of pubic, axillary, that is armpit, and facial hair, as well as helps in faster body growth, and the development of the body occurs. By the age of 10, levels of DHEA are 10 times higher to what they were between the ages of 1 and 4. The pubertal process begins at age 8 in girls and age 9 in boys, and takes about 3 to 4 years for both the sexes. Now let us look at some of the physiological changes that takes place during adolescence. The table shows the age of first appearance of related characteristics in females. Between ages 10 to 13, there is growth of breasts. Between 9.5 to 14, there is growth of pubic hair. Between 9.5 to 14.5, there is body growth. Between 10 to 16.5 years, menarche occurs. About 2 years after the appearance of pubic hair, appearance of axillary hair takes place. About the same time as appearance of axillary hair, the increased output of oil and sweat producing glands takes place. The table shows the age of first appearance of related characteristics in males. Between the ages 9 to 13.5 years, growth of testis and scrotal sac occurs. Between 12 to 16 years, there is growth of pubic hair. Between 10.5 to 16 years, there is body growth, and between 11 to 14.5 years, growth of male genitals, prostate gland and seminal vesicles occur. At about the same time as the growth of genitals, there is change in voice. And about 1 year after the beginning of growth of genitals, there appears the first ejaculation. About 2 years after appearance of pubic hair, appearance of facial and axillary hair takes place. And about the same time as appearance of axillary hair, increased output of oil and sweat producing glands takes place. So what are the primary and secondary sex characteristics? The primary sex characteristics are the organs necessary for production, whereas the secondary sex characteristics are physiological signs of sexual maturity that do not directly involve the sex organs. The primary sex characteristics of female are the ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, and the female genital organ. The table shows the primary sex characteristics of both males and females. The female sex organs are ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus and the female genital organ. The male sex organs are testis, the male genital organ, scrotum, seminal vesicles and prostate gland. These reproductive organs develop and mature during puberty. Following are the secondary sex characteristics of both boys and girls. The table shows the secondary sex characteristics of both boys and girls. First, let us look at the girls. The secondary sex characteristics are breasts, pubic hair, axillary hair, changes in voice, changes in skin, increased width and depth of pelvis, and muscular development. The secondary sex characteristics of boys are pubic hair, axillary hair, change in voice and skin, muscular development, facial hair, and broadening of shoulders. The first external signs of puberty are breast tissue, pubic hair in girls, and enlargement of testes in boys. The voice deepens, especially in boys, and the skin becomes rougher and oilier. Increased activity of the sebaceous glands may give rise to pimples and blackheads. Acne is more common in boys and seems to be related to the increased amount of testosterone. Now let us look at the adolescent growth spurt. A rapid increase in height, weight and muscle and bone growth occurs during puberty. Generally in girls, the growth begins between the ages of 9.5 to 14.5 and in boys between 10.5 to 16. The growth spurt lasts about 2 years. Soon after it ends, the young person reaches sexual maturity. Both growth hormone and the sex hormones contribute to this normal pubertal growth pattern. Girls between the ages of 11 to 13 tend to be taller than boys of the same age because girls' growth spurt usually occurs 2 years earlier than boys. After growth spurt again, boys appear to be larger. Girls and boys reach full height at the age of 15 and 17 respectively. The rate of muscular growth peaks at the age of 12.5 for girls and 14.5 for boys. Both boys and girls differ in the rate of growth in form and in shape. In overall, the boys become larger and their shoulders wider, legs longer relative to his trunk and his forearms longer relative to his upper arms and his height. The girl's pelvis widens to make childbearing easier, and layers of fat accumulate under the skin, giving a more rounded appearance. Fat accumulates twice as much in girls than in boys. So what are the signs of sexual maturity? The maturation of reproductive organs brings the beginning of menstruation in girls and production of sperms in boys. The sign of sexual maturity in boys is the production of sperm. The first ejaculation or sperm arc occurs at an average age of 13. The sign of sexual maturity in girls is menstruation, a monthly shedding of tissue from the lining of the womb. The first menstruation or menarche occurs at an average age of 12 years. Now, there are a number of factors that influence the onset and progression of puberty. Factors that affect the onset and progression of puberty are genetic and biological influences, stressful life events, socio-economic status, nutrition and diet, amount of body fat, and the presence of a chronic illness. Firstly, let us look at the influence of hormones. The growth hormone or GH and thyroxine contribute to the gain in body size and completion of skeletal maturation. Estrogens are typically thought of as female hormones and androgens like testosterone as male hormones, although both types of hormones are present in each sex. Testosterone, the androgen released in large quantities by the male testis, leads to muscle growth, body and facial hair, etc. Estrogen leads to the development of girls' breasts, uterus, male genitalia, accumulation of fat, and beginning of menstrual cycle. The second influence is that of family. Family conflict is associated with early menarche, whereas parental warmth, harmonious family relationships, and paternal involvement in child rearing are related to later menarche. Parental rearing practices also influence the onset of menarche. Girls with supportive and affectionate parents enter puberty later than girls who have single parent and stressful relationships. The third influence is that of genetics. Children's age of puberty is also influenced by their parents' age of achieving puberty. According to Sussman and Rogel, the age of a girl's first menstruation tends to be similar to that of her mother if same nutrition and standard of living is followed. The fourth factor that influences is that of obesity and physical activity. Early obesity is attributed with early onset of puberty in both boys and girls. Obese girls develop breast tissue earlier and also get their menarche earlier. This is due to the result of an increased level of hormones which are stored in fat cells. Teenagers engage in regular exercise have lower body fat mass and cholesterol levels, as a result of which onset of puberty will be slower. The fifth influence is that of illness and poor health. Systemic ill health and personal neglect both interfere with the adolescent growth. A primary cause of poor health is disease. Typical adolescence disease are TB, diabetes mellitus, and kidney infections. In addition, an adolescent may suffer from anemia and gastrointestinal disorders. One disease source is endocrinopathology, which involves hormonal deficiencies. Such deficiencies will affect the adolescent's growth patterns, frequently causing thyroid and ovarian disorders. Some endocrine-related problems are caused by chromosomal aberrations. For example, Turner syndrome is a degeneration of chromosomes through heredity. This condition usually causes ovarian disorders. A female suffering from this disease is short in stature and does not reach puberty. The sixth factor that influences is nutrition. Nutrition plays an important role in the development of puberty and is important to support body growth. Children who are healthier, better nourished and better cared for might be expected to mature earlier and grow bigger. Girls who consume more foods that are high in cholesterol, fat and calories get their menarche earlier. The seventh factor that influences is that of emotion. Emotion plays a major role in menarche. According to Stice, Prisenel and Behrman, early menarche has been associated with depression and substance abuse. The eighth influence is that of environment. Environmental stressors that include chemicals found in pesticides disrupt the endocrine system and leads to the onset of early puberty. Hormones can directly affect behavior. Physical changes causes changes in self-image which affect adolescents' behavior. Adolescents' females' preoccupation with their bodies is a relatively recent phenomenon influenced by marketers of clothing, cosmetics and weight loss products. Let us look at the immediate psychological and social impact of puberty. The first one is puberty and self-esteem. Going through puberty may lead to modest declines in self-esteem in girls, but only when accompanied by other life stressors like onset of dating, menarche, and changing schools in the same year. The second impact is adolescent moodiness. Adolescents are typically thought to be moodier than children or adults. The Beeper study determined that teens' moods do fluctuate more than adults. However, the direct connection between hormones and moods is not very strong. It may be the fluctuation rather than the dramatic increase in hormones that influence moodiness. While the moods of girls are related to levels of hormones, life stressors seem to be more important predictors of mood. Adolescent mood swings may impact their activity level. There may be distinct patterns of mood changes. For example, some teens have frequent mood fluctuations but are generally happy. Few have frequent mood fluctuations but are generally in a bad mood. Some teens have fewer mood fluctuations but are generally in a happier mood, and those who have few mood fluctuations may be generally in a bad mood. Some teens have few fluctuations but are in an extremely negative mood most of the time. The third impact of puberty is changes in sleep patterns. Hormones may also affect the sleep needs of adolescents. A delayed phase preference seems to exist, influenced by the biological changes of puberty. Teens tend to stay up later and wake up later either than adults or children. Most scientists believe that most teens are not getting enough sleep, which is related to poor mental health and lowered school achievement. The fourth impact of puberty is on family relationships. Puberty appears to increase the conflict and distance between parents and children. This distancing is not as strong in single-parent homes and ethnic minority families. Minor conflicts increase and positive exchanges decrease, at least when the adolescent is going through puberty. This change is not affected by the timing of puberty. Development during puberty seems to affect the balance of interpersonal relationships in family system that existed during childhood. As they mature, adolescents tend to name peers rather than adults as the individuals who are more important to them. There exists a great deal of difference in behavioral characteristics of early versus late maturing adolescents. It is generally found that early maturing boys tend to be more popular among their peers, self-assured, pious, and athletic. The other side of the coin is boys who mature early face difficulties in school and they are more likely to become involved in delinquency and substance abuse. Due to their larger size, they will seek out the company of older boys who may lead them into activities that are inappropriate for their age. Late maturing boys are generally found to be physically less attractive, less pious, more attention-seeking and talkative. Because of their smaller size, they are at a disadvantage when it comes to sports activities. Furthermore, boys are expected to be bigger than their dates, so the social lives of late maturing boys may suffer. Ultimately, if these difficulties lead to a decline in self-concept, the disadvantage of late maturing for boys could well be extended into adulthood. But more positively, coping with the challenges of late maturation may actually help males in some ways. Late maturing boys grow up to have several positive qualities such as assertiveness, insightfulness, and they are more creatively playful than early maturers. For the early maturing girls, obvious changes in their bodies such as the development of breast tissue may lead them to feel uncomfortable and different from their peers. Early maturing girls may have to endure ridicule from their late maturing classmates. On the other hand, girls who mature earlier tend to be sought after as potential dates, and their popularity may enhance their self-concept. Early maturers may not be socially equipped or ready to participate in the kind of one-on-one dating situations that most girls have to deal with at a later age, and such situations may be psychologically challenging for them. Moreover, the conspicuousness of their deviance from their late maturing classmates may have a negative impact, producing anxiety, unhappiness, and depression. Girls who mature late may be overlooked in dating and both gendered activities, and during junior high school and middle school, this may lead to their relatively low social status. In fact, late maturing girls may end up with fewer emotional problems because they are more apt to fit the society's idea of slender body type than early maturers who tend to look heavier in comparison. The reactions to early and late maturation provide a complex picture. An individual's development is affected by a number of factors. Some developmental psychologists suggest that factors such as changes in peer group, family dynamics, and particularly schools and other society institutions may be more pertinent in determining an adolescent's behavior than early and late maturation and the effects of puberty in general. Regardless of the timing of physical changes that takes place during adolescence, this is a period in which physical appearance assumes paramount importance. Both girls and boys are known to spend hours concerned about their appearance, particularly in order to fit into the crowd of the group that they identify with. Eating disorders during adolescence. Puberty by its very nature is associated with weight gain, and many adolescents experience dissatisfaction with their changing bodies. Some adolescents, mostly girls, become preoccupied with their physical appearance and begin to diet obsessively. These adolescents eventually develop eating disorders such as anorexia nervosa and bulimia. Anorexia nervosa is a severe eating disorder in which the individuals refuse to eat while refusing to agree that their behavior and appearance is not normal. Even though they eat little, anorexics are often focused on food. They may go shopping often, collect cookbooks, talk about food, and cook huge meals for others. Although they may be incredibly thin, their body images are so distorted that they may see their reflections in mirrors as disgustingly fat and try to lose more weight. Even when they look like skeletons, they are unable to see what they have become. While bulimia is an eating disorder characterized by binging on large quantities of food, followed by purges of the food through vomiting or the use of laxatives. Although the weight of a person with bulimia remains fairly normal, the disorder is quite dangerous. The constant vomiting and diarrhea of the binge and purge cycles may produce a chemical imbalance in the body that can lead to a heart failure. Some experts suggest that a biological cause lies at the root of both anorexia nervosa and bulimia. In fact, twin studies suggest that there is a genetic component to these disorders. In addition, hormonal imbalances occur in sufferers. Other attempts to explain the eating disorders emphasize the psychological and social factors. For instance, some experts suggest that the disorders are a result of perfectionist, over-demanding parents or byproducts of other family difficulties. Also, culture plays an important role. Anorexia nervosa, for instance, is found only in culture that idealize slender female bodies. Because in most places such standard does not hold, anorexia is mostly prevalent in United States. Both anorexia nervosa and bulimia are products of both biological and environmental causes. Treatment typically involves a mix of both the approaches. For instance, both psychological therapy and dietary modifications are likely to be needed for successful treatment. In more extreme cases, hospitalization may be necessary. Thus, it is important that parents, professionals who deal with adolescents need to know what is normative and what represents early or late physical development in order to help prepare the adolescent for innumerable changes that takes place during this stage. Adolescence in general is a very healthy time of life. However, it is also a time of great risk because adolescents engage in behaviors that can result in health problems such as drug abuse, aggression, unprotected sex, and drunk driving. While there have been dramatic improvements in medicine and treatment of childhood and adolescent illness, there is an increased threat from unhealthy choices teens make. Approximately 45% of teen deaths result from car accidents and another 30% are a result of suicide. Therefore, successful health promotion includes establishing a trusting relationship with the teen prior to adolescence, talking to teenagers about healthy and non-healthy behaviors, offering sound advice about healthy behaviors, and encouraging them to participate in health promoting programs and following up with the teenagers after participation.